Welcome to part 10 of half bath to full bath conversion. I'm How To Bob, and we're going to get started behind the walls, get everything straightened up behind the walls before we put some drywall up. I'm going to block the water lines here, give them some support as they're hanging out of the wall. So I'll put a little 1x4 on the wall and then put a pipe clamp on this one. And then on the hot side, what I'm going to do is put a 2x4 on the side of the stud here and screw that into the wall stud. Then I'll put my clamp down below here, and that should hold everything in place as far as the pipes go. Now on the sides, I'm going to need to block where the drywall meets the drywall that's existing. So I'll put a 2x4 along the side, and I need to put my protection plates over top of all the plumbing just to protect it against any screws when putting up the drywall. I still have to move over the lights that were in the old location, so I'm going to find the center line. And to do that, I'm going to put a piece of cardboard across the two studs, find the center line. And what I'm going to do, instead of putting a light in the center because there's that vent running through there, I'm going to put two separate sconce lights, one on either side. So I want to get them centered. About 7 inches from the center is where I'm going to place them. And you can see I'm going to have to take this board off on the side, the one I just put on, and I'll have to cut a little notch out to put my light in that location, so just so that they're centered. And I'll put a smaller block back in, and that'll leave me some room for my wall box for my sconce. So now that I have the blocking out of the way, I can get my box centered, and it's going to be right about there's where I want it to land. So I need it to come out just a little bit more. So I've got a 1x4 that I'm going to screw into the stud that's there, and that should bump it out just far enough to get me right on center. Let's take a look, and that's right where I want it to be. So I can take my cardboard template or center line marker off, and I still have to remove some of the drywall around this box. So I'll just cut a little notch out and then break the pieces off. Then my box should fit right up against the drywall, and I can nail it to the studs. And I've got one wall sconce box already up, so I can use my level, and I know the other one's going to be right up against this wall stud, and then I can nail the other box in place, and I can screw my blocking back in so it'll have something to lean my drywall on. So I'm going to go from here to here, and then it's going to go to the other box. So I need to drill a hole to get some wires through to the other side, and I've got a couple holes drilled here. Let me remove the light fixture from its old location, take the mounting plate off, and undo all the wiring. It comes off real easy. And then I can take the electrical box out, and it looks like it's right on a stud, and the wires are already going through the stud. So I'm going to pull this box out of the way. And once I get that out of the way, I can drill a hole through the stud to get my wires to the new location. I'll use a fish tape again on this. I'm going to fish the tape all the way down since I don't have drywall down below. I'll fish it all the way down to the bottom here, and then I'll fish my wire through the opposite way, and they'll meet in the middle. Once I get those pulled together, I can tape them, the fish tape and the wire together, and then pull the fish tape up, and I have my wire going from its old location over to the new location. I can remove my insulation, and I'm going to get a junction box and feed the new wire and the old wire into the junction box. Once I get those in there, I'll start making my connections and using wire nuts, the black to the black, connect the ground wires together, and I can cut these down there a little bit too long, And I'll put a wire nut on the ground, and then I can twist the white wires together, tuck them all inside the box, and put a blank cover plate on the box. So now I've got my wires going all the way over to my new box. I can cut it to the right length and feed it into my junction box. And then I'm going to need to feed a second wire going to the other box from that first box, and that'll feed both of my lights once I get those wired up. So I can strip my wires, pull off the insulation. Then I can tuck the wires back into the box. Now if we go out into the hall area, you can see this panel here. I'm just going to remove that because it'd be easier to replace the whole thing than cut little strips. And I can continue blocking up any of the corners where drywall is going to meet the ceiling and the wall, and the corners around where the vanity need blocked as well. So I'll just run pieces of 2x4 on the corners so that I have something to screw my drywall into on the corners all the way up and down each corner. I want to make sure that there is something for the drywall to sit up against so that it doesn't crack and I have some place to screw my drywall to. Okay, that takes care of the vanity area. It's all blocked up. Let's go out and take a look at this wall here. I'm going to remove this piece from the ceiling. Again, it'll be easier to put one solid piece up versus two little strips. And likewise on the wall here, I'll remove this wall piece and just replace it with one big piece rather than patch it with several small pieces. It'll give a smoother finish on the wall. Then I need to block the ceiling, and I'll just put some 2x4s up, and I can screw into the 2x4s through the existing ceiling with some drywall screws, and I'm going to countersink those a little bit. Those will be covered once I start finishing the drywall, and I'll do the other side as well. And before I button up any drywall, I want to make sure I insulate, put some fire block in all the holes going from the ceiling to the upstairs or the basement to this floor. Just fill in any gaps, any holes around pipes, around wire, any unnecessary holes. Doesn't hurt to fill in holes around vents or any other place you see that might have a gap, and it is required from floor to floor for a fire break or fire stop. Notice there was no fire stop in any of the holes when I took the walls down, so I'm not sure who inspected this prior to the drywall, but the insulation inspection should have caught any of that. And I like to go around a lot of different places, probably more than is necessary, but it sure does not hurt. I've got a can, and you know how this can is. Once the can started used, you got to use it or throw it away. So I'll go ahead and hit every spot that I see all around the vents, and especially the wires and piping. All right, I'll give it one last look over, and it looks like I've got all the insulation blown in where I need it to be, so I can start putting the drywall up. I'll start on the piece out in the hallway. I already got it cut, and I'll just screw that in. Now when I'm doing the drywall on the ceiling, I like to put screws every 8 to 10 inches. I don't want to go any further apart than that, just because it's overhead and it's required to have a few more because of the load on it. So the next piece I'm going to work on is the piece that I took down above where the closet was. slide that piece in, and again put a screw in it to hold it up, and start putting screws in every 8 to 10 inches apart. Okay, the next piece I'm going to put in is in the bathroom itself, and I'll put this one's right above the entry door going into the bathroom, and it's one of the larger pieces that I have to put up on the ceiling. So I'll slide that into place, and you can see where it meets up against the textured ceiling. I'll show you how I'm going to finish that in the upcoming part. And I got this piece here that's not going all the way up, so I'll just use a 2x4 and tap it into place. That way it keeps everything even. My transition from piece to piece is nice. And I'll go out to the hallway, and I'll start on the wall board and start screwing the wall board in. This one's a little bit long, so I'll just cut it from the back side and break the piece off, and then I can cut it from the front side and get a nice straight cut there. And I'll come back out to the outside, and I'll put my drywall screws in. So now I have the piece above the vanity where my sconce lights are going to go. I'm going to put that up, hold it in place with a couple of screws. You get a couple of them in here, and then I'll bring in my roto zip tool, and I'll buzz around the lights where the boxes are. Let's see, find this one right here. Then I can go all the way around this one. Had to make sure I had the right location first. And there we go, got those cut out. So then I can start screwing in this piece. And once I get that screwed in, I want to get the lights on so I'll have something to work with. It's kind of dark in here. So I'll put my mounting plate for my lights, pull the wire out, and I'll twist the ground wire around the mounting block and screw it in. And I can strip my wires to the correct length. About 3/4 of an inch is what I go with. And I can twist my grounds together and cut them even. Then I have my wall sconce here, and I just bring the ground over to the other 2 ground wires, and then I can twist all the wires together, ground to ground, black to black, and white to white. Tuck in all the wires. Let's make sure they fit in there. Once they fit in there, mount my light, and there's 2 little finished screws. They look like balls, and they just screw into the bolts that are sticking out of the mounting plate. And then I'll have to do the next light. Screw my mounting plate on, and then I can pull the wires out and twist the wires onto the wires from the light fixture. Again, it's just the ground goes to the ground, the white goes to the white, and the black goes to the black. Once I get that done, I'm going to tuck all the lights in and match them up with the bolts that are hanging out of the wall. Then I can put my light bulbs in, and how nice it'll be to have some light in the bathroom again. There we go. Got our wall sconces in, and I'll work on the piece below. I'm going to match the piece up with the plumbing, both vertical and horizontal. And then I'm going to remove the shutoff valves. First, I'm going to drain all the water out. That way I don't have to make as big a hole in the drywall. So I'll just pop the shutoffs, both the hot and the cold, off, along with the toilet supply. And I don't have the drain hooked up. If you remember, I have not glued that in yet. leaves me the toilet shutoff left. So I've got all my shutoffs taken off now. I've got my holes drilled. I bring my drywall over, slide it into place, and hopefully everything lines up since I marked everything and it fit in perfect. So now all I have to do is screw in all of my drywall screws. And I have the measurements for the drain, and I marked it on the wall. So I'm going to put a hole about the size of the drain here using my rotozip. And then I can get the glue and finally glue this into place, make sure there's no dirt or debris in there, and put my PVC glue on the pipe and on the fitting. Slide that into place, and I'm going to give it a little turn once I get it in. Then I'm going to put the trap adapter on without gluing it, and we'll check back in part 11. I'm How To Bob. Thanks for watching.